Dubai does not lack sunshine. It lacks a foolproof way to keep that sunshine touching the panels. The city is currently building one of the largest single-site solar power systems in the world, right in the middle of the unforgiving desert. But in a highly specific field test conducted under United Arab Emirates weather conditions, accumulating dust reduced the power output of solar photovoltaic panels by 12.7% after just over 5 months of exposure. Dust does not need to shatter the protective glass. It only needs to rest gently on the surface and block a tiny fraction of the incoming light every single day. By the year 2030, the Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum solar park is officially expected to surpass 8,000 megawatts in total generation capacity. But is Dubai expanding a massive grid system that only achieves peak economic efficiency when millions of individual surfaces are kept perfectly clean? Look closely at this phenomenon, because we are witnessing a defining test of modern economics. For decades, Dubai has built its entire global reputation on engineering construction miracles that directly defy its harsh geography. The city engineered massive indoor ski slopes in the desert, towering skyscrapers built on loose sand, and sprawling artificial islands dredged from the ocean floor. Now, they are applying that exact same limitless ambition to their energy sector. The Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum solar park currently sits at a massive operational capacity of roughly 3,860 megawatts. It is a sprawling, endless ocean of highly reflective glass and reinforced steel stretching as far as the eye can see toward the horizon. This is no longer a small pilot project or a theoretical experiment. This is the structural backbone of their future electrical grid. As the total installed capacity grows, the quality of daily operational maintenance becomes incredibly significant to the survival of the grid. Dubai has two undeniable natural advantages, which are vast open desert spaces and relentless year-round sunlight. It initially seems like the absolute perfect equation for limitless green energy production. But the sensitive electronic equipment must survive and operate directly in a harsh, dry, high-heat environment where the sand never stops moving. What exactly happens when a major global metropolis places an increasingly large portion of its critical energy future on technology that must directly face the abrasive desert wind every single day? The true vulnerability of this system does not begin deep inside the complex wiring or the transformers. It begins on a microscopic level, on a layer of ambient dust so thin that sometimes the human eye can barely even register it is there. A solar panel completely covered in a fine layer of dust does not necessarily stop working entirely. It simply works a little less effectively than it did the day before. And that is exactly why the systemic financial loss can continue for long periods without ever creating a single, obvious moment of catastrophic mechanical failure. We often picture engineering failures as massive explosions, melting wires, or collapsing steel structures. But in the desert environment, operational failure is a very slow bleed. To understand the core threat, we only need to look at 3 incredibly simple physical steps. First, the incoming sunlight must physically travel through the protective glass surface of the panel. Second, when fine dust settles on that clear glass, it reflects, absorbs, or scatters a significant portion of that incoming solar radiation before it can cross the final barrier. Third, less light reaching the active photovoltaic cells underneath simply means less electricity is generated. That is the entire mechanism at play. You do not need to understand complex semiconductor physics, electron movement, or advanced voltage curves to see the fundamental problem. A solar panel is essentially a highly engineered window, and the desert environment is constantly trying to paint that window brown. This silent, ongoing accumulation fundamentally changes how we evaluate structural risk. A massive storm is an extreme event you can plan for, but ambient dust is a permanent atmospheric condition. What makes me question the long-term viability of these megaprojects is not the dramatic images of giant sandstorms we occasionally see shared on social media. It is the invisible, relentless, daily return of fine airborne particles. Is it more concerning to face one massive dust storm every few years, or to fight a tiny layer of static grime that returns every single morning without fail? To answer that question, we do not need to guess or rely on theoretical computer models. Researchers in the United Arab Emirates physically placed solar panels outside in the elements and measured exactly what happens when the desert is left completely alone. In a highly detailed outdoor study investigating the specific impact of dust under local United Arab Emirates weather conditions, researchers left photovoltaic systems fully exposed to the elements for over 5 months. The published results painted a very clear and sobering picture of the local environment. Dust density on the testing panels increased by approximately 5.44 grams per square meter over the duration of the test. Consequently, the recorded power loss reached roughly 12.7%. The study also clearly noted that the specific tilt angle of the panels directly affected how much dust managed to stay trapped on the glass surface. Rain could occasionally wash some of the lighter accumulation away, but relying on natural rain in a notoriously arid desert environment is obviously not a viable operational strategy for a major utility company. Now, we must be absolutely clear about the boundaries of these numbers. This is a controlled field experiment. It is not the total operating output data of the entire Mohammed bin Rashid solar park. You cannot simply take 12.7% and multiply it directly across the entire installed capacity of Dubai to irresponsibly claim they are losing an exact massive amount of power right now. However, this rigorous experiment proves something vital to our investigation. It proves that in this specific local environment, standard dust accumulation can quickly create a level of power loss significant enough that grid operators simply cannot ignore it. If a small testing surface can lose over 1/10 of its generation capacity in just a few short months, what happens when millions of separate commercial surfaces all require constant inspection and cleaning? The physical logistics scale up exponentially. The challenge is no longer just generating power from the sun. The primary challenge becomes a monumental task of infinite surface management. But surviving the dramatic weather events is still not the hardest part of this economic equation. The truly difficult part is determining exactly when the physical act of cleaning becomes worth the cost of the electricity that is currently being lost. We critically need to break the popular expectation that the problem only exists when the sky turns dark red and the wind howls. The threat of desert dust actually operates in 3 distinct, overlapping phases. The first phase happens during the storm itself. Thick, heavy dust, suspended high in the air, blocks the solar radiation from even reaching the ground. Total power production drops sharply, but this is merely a temporary atmospheric condition that will eventually pass. The second phase happens immediately after the storm finally moves on. The wind dies down. The sky might look perfectly clear and brilliantly sunny again, but the power generation of the solar park does not return to its maximum baseline. Why? Because a significant, stubborn portion of that airborne dust has now settled permanently onto the glass panels. The air above is clear, but the windows looking up are deeply soiled. The third phase occurs in the long, quiet, seemingly peaceful periods between the major storms. This is the ambient accumulation phase. Every single day, a tiny, invisible layer is added by normal wind currents. The panel efficiency drops slowly, almost unnoticeably from day to day. In my view, this quiet accumulation is far more dangerous to the bottom line than the viral videos of towering sandstorms. A storm has a clear beginning and a definitive end, but the daily settling of microscopic dust has no clear ending point at all. It is a relentless, ambient force of nature. Imagine managing this massive grid system. Will you dispatch massive cleaning crews immediately after every minor wind event to secure maximum efficiency, or will you actively choose to wait until the volume of lost electricity exceeds the financial cost of running the cleaning operations? With a single rooftop solar setup, that is a minor weekend decision. With a sprawling utility park spanning thousands of megawatts, it becomes a high-stakes mathematical equation that defines the profitability of the entire facility. This brings us directly to the core financial paradox of the desert grid. Solar energy is famously celebrated globally because it does not require purchasing raw fuel the way traditional coal or fossil fuel plants do. The sunshine itself is entirely free. The daily maintenance, however, is incredibly expensive. The facility operators must continuously pay for a complex web of supporting services. They pay heavily for remote performance monitoring, highly specialized surface sensors, vast fleets of automated cleaning robots, and the base energy required to power those cleaning systems. They also have to fund the ongoing mechanical maintenance of the robots themselves, the human personnel required for manual inspections, and the heavy data analysis needed to optimize the cleaning schedules. Cleaning the panels too rarely results in a massive, unacceptable loss of generated power. Cleaning them too frequently drives the operational overhead costs through the roof. The real problem facing the engineers is pinpointing the exact economic sweet spot on a daily basis. How cheap is renewable solar energy really? If the surfaces creating that energy must be physically inspected and wiped clean continuously for decades just to function properly. This operational reality directly impacts the fragile modern economics of Dubai. The city operates on a highly specific economic model, heavily reliant on luxury tourism, premium hospitality, and high-end real estate. Think about the massive climate-controlled shopping malls, the extravagant indoor theme parks, the luxury industry dependency trap, and the Michelin-starred restaurants offering pristine, air-conditioned views of the Burj Khalifa. This entire hospitality ecosystem is deeply sensitive to utility operational costs. These incredible commercial spaces require massive, uninterrupted, and affordable electricity to maintain their artificial environments. If the cost of maintaining the solar grid spirals out of control just to fight off the sand, the energy is no longer cheap. Dubai has found part of the answer by reducing water usage and sending machines into the desert. But the massive scale of their technological solution only highlights how terrifying the scale of the original problem truly is. When human labor and precious freshwater resources are simply not enough to combat the environment, you turn to heavy automation. The Dubai Electricity and Water Authority heavily utilizes and actively tests robotic panel cleaning systems. Many of these modern systems are designed to operate entirely without water, using specialized, ultra-soft microfiber brushes and targeted air pressure to physically sweep the dust away without scratching the glass. The authority also implements advanced solar tracking systems, deep performance monitoring, and predictive maintenance protocols driven by artificial intelligence. They even established a dedicated testing zone at their main research and development center just to evaluate different robotic cleaning technologies against each other. These robots help automate a highly repetitive, physically exhausting task across a massive physical area. But we must remember one crucial detail that is often ignored in the promotional videos. Robots do not remove dust from the general environment. They merely push it off the glass and onto the ground, where the wind will eventually pick it up again. They are not a permanent cure. They are a daily treatment. And this harsh reality invites a series of critical investigative questions. How often must these mechanical robots run to keep the baseline efficiency high enough to be profitable? How severely does the extreme ambient heat and highly abrasive fine grit degrade the moving gears and tracks of the robots themselves? When a machine inevitably breaks down in the middle of a vast desert array, how quickly can operators locate, retrieve, and replace it before that section of the grid drops in output? Most importantly, how many active cleaning robots will be absolutely necessary when the park capacity ultimately exceeds 8,000 megawatts? Are the cleaning systems expanding as rapidly and reliably as the main power generation systems? Seeing a sleek robot cleaning a panel at sunset is visually impressive. But when a supposedly green technology requires an entirely separate, massive mechanical infrastructure running constantly just to keep the primary surfaces functional, is that a final triumph of engineering, or is it an endless maintenance race? That specific race will only become more intense and expensive as Dubai aggressively adds thousands of new megawatts to the expanding grid. A small 5% loss of efficiency on a single residential solar panel is a negligible issue that most homeowners would never even notice. But when that exact same minor percentage loss happens simultaneously across millions of commercial panels, it transforms into a massive systemic challenge. Scaling up changes the fundamental nature of the engineering problem. As the solar park expands toward the horizon, the operators must monitor vastly more surfaces, coordinate significantly larger fleets of robots, identify far more points of mechanical failure, and process infinitely more performance data just to maintain the status quo. The real danger of widespread surface soiling is that it makes citywide power generation significantly harder to predict if it is not meticulously measured and managed. Accurate forecasting is absolutely vital for running a modern power grid safely. The grid operators sitting in the control rooms need to know exactly how much solar power will be available at any given hour so they can perfectly balance the surging city demand for air conditioning. Dust does not destroy the physical grid, but it can make the solar output significantly lower or far more unpredictable if left unchecked. If solar drops unexpectedly, they must burn expensive backup gas to cover the shortfall, ruining the economic advantage of the solar park. This brings us directly back to the precarious nature of Dubai and its ambitious energy strategy. The city absolutely cannot afford unpredictable power fluctuations. The towering luxury hotels and massive entertainment complexes demand absolute, unwavering stability. Are the developers expanding the physical footprint of their solar generation faster than their logistical ability to monitor and clean those exact surfaces? If the solar arrays underperform due to unpredictable dust accumulation, the entire economic model faces subtle but serious financial pressure. The risk we are discussing here is derived directly from the massive scale of the expansion and the unforgiving nature of the desert environment. Saying Dubai has no plan to counter this threat would be completely incorrect. The city is essentially turning this massive facility into a live, high-stakes laboratory for fighting the desert. To secure the grid and protect their investment, Dubai is aggressively deploying a highly sophisticated arsenal of engineering solutions. Beyond the dry cleaning robotic fleets, they utilize advanced optical soiling sensors to measure exactly how much dust is gathering on the glass in real time. They maintain pristine, manually cleaned control panels in the field to compare expected perfect output against actual soiled generation. They lean heavily on predictive maintenance algorithms to identify low-performing zones and dispatch crews before they become critical operational issues. They meticulously optimize panel tilt angles to encourage ambient dust to slide off naturally with gravity. And they are constantly testing specialized anti-soiling chemical coatings designed to make the glass incredibly slippery. However, for every new solution introduced, we must step back and ask three critical questions. Which specific part of the problem does it actually solve? What new operational cost or physical vulnerability does it create? And does it eliminate the dust entirely, or just help humans manage it slightly better? The optical sensors provide great performance data, but that data requires paid analysts to interpret it. The robots sweep the glass efficiently, but the robots require expensive spare parts and dedicated maintenance crews. The chemical coatings actively repel dirt, but these sensitive coatings degrade and peel under the harsh, relentless ultraviolet light of the desert sun. I do not believe that desert dust will force the solar farms of Dubai to permanently shut down. The city simply has far too much capital and raw engineering talent to ever let that happen. But what truly stands out to me is that Dubai cannot simply solve this problem once, declare victory, and walk away. The dust mitigation systems must operate continuously for the entire 30-year lifespan of the power plant. If the robots, sensors, and predictive algorithms successfully maintain the power output, then Dubai has successfully adapted to the desert. But if the ongoing cost of maintaining that constant control continues to naturally rise over time, could the core economic advantage of cheap solar power slowly begin to shrink? The final question is not whether the hardened panels will survive the heat. The question is how much supporting technology must be constantly maintained just to secure the exact amount of electricity that was originally promised. Dubai does not lack sunshine. The city is boldly constructing thousands of new megawatts of capacity in one of the most intensely sun-drenched regions on the entire planet. But the massive installation capacity, proudly announced in press releases, is only the first number in the actual equation. The logistical ability to keep those millions of surfaces fully operational dictates how much electricity is actually delivered to the glowing city skyline. The presence of dust does not prove that the ambitious solar strategy has completely failed. However, it absolutely proves that harvesting desert solar energy is not as simple as placing shiny glass in the sun and waiting for the money to roll in. The actual power output is entirely dependent on the relentless effectiveness of the cleaning, monitoring, and maintenance protocols. When you multiply the physical scale of the facility, the supporting infrastructure must multiply directly with it. Dust does not need to shatter expensive equipment to inflict severe financial damage. It only needs to lower the expected production long enough to quietly hurt the profit margins. Dubai definitely possesses the capital and technology to fight back, but that technology must never stop working for even a single day. The automated robots might clear the heavy layer today. The advanced sensors might catch the efficiency drop tomorrow. But absolutely no single engineering solution will ever stop the microscopic dust from returning on the wind. The war is never truly over after a single cleaning cycle, so we are left to wonder, is Dubai building an energy system that has perfectly adapted to the harsh realities of the desert, or are they building a fragile system that must constantly burn through cash just to fight the exact environment it was built in? Do you think robotic automation and predictive data will keep desert solar farms highly profitable in the long run, or will fighting the dust eventually become a massive financial burden as these mega projects continue to expand? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. The power loss figures mentioned in this video originate from highly specific research studies and targeted field test conditions. They do not directly represent the total current operational output of the entire Dubai solar park without access to their internal daily operating data.